This podcast is for educational purposes and does not replace individualized medical care.
Episode 7. Bleeding patterns, the signal, not the system. As we talked about hot flashes, the invisible signal from the brain, today we shift to something visible. Bleeding. While menopause is defined by the absence of periods, the years leading up to it are often defined by a change in bleeding patterns. The question today, what is your bleeding actually telling you? We often treat the menstrual cycle as binary. You either have a period or you do not. But clinically, bleeding is not a switch. It's a pattern. And patterns carry information. In a typical reproductive rhythm, cycles are predictable. Timing is relatively consistent. Flow follows a familiar pattern. As the menopause transition begins, that predictability starts to shift. Cycles may shorten, then lengthen. Bleeding may become lighter or unexpectedly heavier. You may skip months or bleed twice in one cycle. This variability is not random. It reflects what we discussed earlier: irregular signaling between the brain and the ovaries. When ovulation becomes inconsistent, the hormonal sequence that builds and sheds the uterine lining becomes unstable. Sometimes estrogen stimulates the lining without the balancing effect of progesterone. This can lead to heavier or prolonged bleeding. Other times, there is minimal stimulation, resulting in lighter or absent periods. So the bleeding is not the problem, it's the readout. But there's where precision matters. Not all bleeding changes are just menopause. There is a clinical line we do not ignore. Bleeding that is very heavy, prolonged, occurring after intercourse, or happening after 12 months of no periods. All of the above requires evaluation. Body literacy is not about normalizing everything. It's about knowing what is expected and what is not. And we also have to acknowledge something from modern medicine. Bleeding is no longer a reliable marker for everyone. Hormonal contraception, IUDs, hysterectomy, these can all suppress or eliminate bleeding. So the absence of a period does not always mean menopause. Because again, the bleeding is a sign, it's not the organ. If you rely only on whether you bleed, you may miss the deeper transition happening underneath. So here is your takeaway. Start tracking your pattern, not just your period. Timing, flow, frequency, and changes over time. Not to control it, but to understand it. Because when you learn to read your body's patterns, you're no longer dependent on a single lab test or a single symptom to define where you are. In the next episode, we move from visible patterns back into the brain, looking at sleep, mood, and cognition in midlife.